Welcome to the podcast, Appetite for Distortion, episode 321.
Yeah.
My name is Brando, and I'm excited. I high school me is kind of freaking out. I hope I'm not dating you guys, but I mean, lit AJ and Kevin. I mean,
Yeah.
I never. I appreciate it. I know you're separate. We're all separate, put together here on this episode. So if I may ask, I'll just introduce who came on the Zoom first, if you don't mind, AJ.
Yeah, let's do it.
Kevin and his feline. Where are you guys located right now?
I'm in Orange County, California. Yep, northern part of Orange County. And I got my cat Dixie with me.
I love it. And my listeners know I got cat randomly. You know, my cat GB makes us jump on the mixer. So if you see me cut out for any reason, it was because I was attacked by a cat. That's why. Maybe
my cat can interview your cat.
Man. All right, let's let's talk after. Let's see. Podcast. All right.
Yeah.
All right. Well, getting off on a very cheesy note here. AJ Popoff. Welcome.
Yeah, man. Thanks, dude.
Where are you? I know. Are you kind of near Kevin? Are you guys sick of each other because you're on the road all the time? That's why you're separate right now.
We really couldn't be much further. I'm in Nashville. So.
Oh wow. Okay.
Yeah. So we do most of our stuff Zoom these days, unless Kevin, I think, spends more time out here because this is where we've been getting most of our work done over the past couple of years. So a little bit more of it's Music City. So
when did you move to Nashville? Because this segues into, Kevin's still in Orange County, and we're going to talk about your roots in the podcast, which is not just about the song, My Own Worst Enemy, but I'm really fascinated by the background and how early the history of Lit goes back. So when did you move to Nashville? First of all, because that's got to be a culture change for you.
Started spending a lot of time here years and years ago, coming out here and just sort of getting my feet wet and collaborating with a lot of the songwriters out here. And I kind of felt like just a lot of growth was happening as a writer and an artist in general. But that was probably about coming on 15 years now ago, probably. But we would have bought a house here a long time ago. I think if it weren't, we have a daughter who was in high school and then kind of waiting for her to complete schooling and then choose a college. And she did. About a year and a half ago, she went off to she's a Ute now, University of Utah. And that we kind of took that as a green light to make our big move as well. And so about a year and a half, we've been here full time.
Okay. And I see you're settling in. If you're watching this on a YouTube channel, you got the Elvis statue behind you, right?
I do. You want a funny story real quick about that, Elvis, is we were just recently on the road and went into this really cool antique, like memorabilia store. And they had a ton of Elvis stuff. I could have bought like everything and been stoked, but I just kind of picked out a few items and I got actually, not that was a different shop, but this one I got it home and realized I had another one just sitting on my living room counter, the exact same one. So I have two of this decanter, but I have a huge Elvis collection and most of it's in the garage, but I kind of pull out my favorite items now.
Okay. That's funny. And you know what? That's cool because it goes to, again, the beginnings. When you think of Lit, at least when I first thought of Lit, you guys broke out when I was in high school. And that's when, I remember putting, My Own Worst Enemy and Miserable on when you would make mix CDs. That's dating myself. So it's just really funny. But to do the research of the band, I had no idea the influence that isn't just the SoCal rock and roll. Like, there's just a deeper backstory to it. So I guess if you guys can tell us about Razzle, because I listened to the first episode of the podcast, and much to my listeners' surprise, and I was happy. I listened to it regardless. I didn't know Guns N' Roses were going to be mentioned 3 times, but they're mentioned because you guys go back to that Sunset Strip era. Yeah. Believe it or not, people might very, very surprising. It really is.
Yeah. You want to take it, AJ, or
no? Go ahead, Kev. Those are definitely really fun years for us, but I'll let Kevin kick it off.
I met AJ and Jeremy in around 1984, and it wasn't till AJ got transferred over to the high school that I was going to, Savannah in Anaheim, that we started hanging out. He was into heavy metal, I was into heavy metal, and then those type of groups would hang out with each other. So, and I already knew him, and I knew his brother and whatnot. But it wasn't for a couple of years that AJ said he was jamming with this guy named Sean. And I was like, dude, I want to be a singer. And AJ was playing drums at the time. And long story, I'll try and shorten it a little bit, the Cliff Notes version. So I went over there, I tried out singing. Singing didn't pan out for me. We needed a bass player, so I ended up playing bass because I kind of knew how to play guitar. And we were pretty young at the time. And we did one show with AJ on drums, and we had a couple of different guys in the band, and we knew it didn't feel right and it wasn't working. We were like, man, this is not going to be. And we knew AJ, he just had a thing about him that was like, dude, you kind of need to be a lead. And lead singers were harder to find, you know? And I knew a guy named Halen that I could probably pull in to play drums. And so we pulled Halen in to play drums. AJ tried out singing, and it just seemed a bit more magical. It seemed to fit a little bit better that way. So Jeremy at the time wasn't in the band just yet. He booked our shows and stuff though. He was in another band at the time, and we did one or two shows. We did a handful of shows as a 4-piece, and then Jeremy entered the picture. Jeremy could see how hungry we were and how we were out for blood. We really wanted to do this, and of course, you know, Jeremy was already helping us, but wasn't in the band just yet. So Jeremy got in the band, and the rest is history. But yeah, we hung out on the Sunset Strip for quite a few years, and man, those were pretty good times. You hear about Studio 54 in New York. The Sunset Strip from Gazzari's or Turner's, was it called Gill's Liquor?
Gil Turner's, yeah.
Yeah, all the way down to the whiskey, was thousands of people on the streets drinking and socializing and going to shows. There was like 3 or 4 places right there that you could go see shows at. And we were a part of all of that, and it was a lot of fun. I mean, and it literally was like going to school though, because you learned a lot. You did different things. You watched the older guys. What are they doing? And how are they doing this? And hey, let's do that. I like doing that, you know? But we were younger, and we had such a great following kind of out of the gate. A lot of older guys were opening for us, which was at times awkward because they're older dudes, you know, they're older musicians, but they're opening for us because we had the crowd. But yeah, to get back to your point, we spent a lot of years cutting our teeth on the Sunset Strip.
It was a lot of work. We were probably there just about every weekend, I think, or close to it, especially if we had a show coming up. And each guy would have like literally a stack of flyers about that tall. And we would show up, we would each have like a half pint, or a couple of us would share like a half pint of Southern Comfort or peppermint schnapps or whatever, because it was usually really cold. You know, we'd be out flying and freezing. So we park the car and sip on that, get warm, get a little buzz going, and then we go out until our flyers were completely gone.
Yep.
And we did that so much, and we just, you know, guerrilla marketing and just built our following like that. And so it was definitely what we call our college years in music, you know.
How old were you at the time? Because you hear stories about, because again, it's the mid 80s. You hear stories about Poison doing that, Motley Crue doing that, Jet Boy doing that, the DIY stuff.
Yeah.
And that's what you did. And again, it's amazing because you're not that era, but you are that era. You're in a weird, I don't know, if you're making like a Venn diagram kind of thing of just where the lit story is, that you were able to experience that hair metal, but you are not at all, of course, grouped into that. So
it's crazy hearing you say that, because we caught the tail end of that, of the Sunset Strip really scene. Luckily we got to be a part of it and learn so much from it. And a similar thing happened, I feel like, at the, you know, in the end of the 90s. Like we're a 90s band, you know, they would say,
right.
But we really caught the very tail end of what was an MTV TRL rock band, you know, and like got to experience that part of it. And then we just sort of, we learned, and we took what we learned from each of those things, and we keep rolling and keep evolving, because we've just sort of always just been survivors, you know, and rolling with the punches the best we can, and open to letting ourselves grow and change, you know, because not many bands stay together as long as we have, you know. So it's like when you see the change that's happened over the years, you got to, I guess, remind yourself that, man, most bands probably didn't last long enough to really watch them go through those changes. You know what I mean? So it's interesting. And we definitely we're proud of the fact that we're able to keep it together, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Keep it together and kind of have that bunker mentality about being a student of music and being like, all right, what's working here? What's going to work for us? So that's why, and I didn't want to be a total spoiler alert for myself. So that's why I only listened to one of the 4 episodes of the podcast. Is because it's interesting to hear of, okay, Guns N' Roses is out, Nirvana's coming in, but then you guys are creating your own thing, the SoCal, and you're getting influenced by The Offspring. I guess when did you feel finally comfortable as Lit, especially when you had a following as Razzle before this other band?
Man, a lot of growing pains, definitely over the years, but good. They're good kind of pain. You feel yourself go, outside the lane from time to time, and it feels good to do that. But then sometimes you find yourself, oh, I'm just going to go back. I'm going to go back here and back where I was, it just felt right. But I don't know, Kev, what do you think?
I think when My Worst Enemy broke, and even prior to that, but My Worst Enemy was a large song in '99. But there was a lot of other things going on, and we didn't fit in a lot of those categories. But could we play with some of those other bands? We did, and we can. And so I think pretty early on, we knew to be just comfortable with whatever we came up with and whatever we were. We sort of dressed differently. We played with Blink, but we were dressing, as if we were going to go out on a night of the town in Las Vegas. We were way into like the swingers. We were into Goodfellas. There was something about all of that we thought was really cool, and we still do. Obviously, we still like to dress up and go out. But I think early on we were pretty comfortable in our skin, and as you get older, you appreciate that you got your own individual thing that you have to offer. That being said, we have played with so many different artists over the year. So just because we're different musically and different, fashion wise, we could still play with a lot of those bands, and we still have a lot in common with a lot of those bands, that we still like. We like those bands, and we like a lot of the stuff that they grew up on. So,
our influences are all over the place. And I think you hear it in our songs. And I think it's kind of kept, like Kevin was saying, it's kept that sort of opportunity open to, we have some heavy riffs and, distorted guitars and heavy hitting drummers that play for us. And, but at the same time, we've always been very melodic, and we have these pop sensibilities that maybe some metal bands don't have. But at the same time, like Kevin said, we love those bands too. We grew up going to Iron Maiden concerts and, Metallica, and, we're GNR fans. We're fans of all that stuff and the evolution of it. So the fact that a lot of these bands here, I think they can hear a little bit of themselves in us because they influenced us. That's what's allowed us to go out and get on stage with Poison and play songs with them and have them in our home video, or get out, play with, like we were talking about Cam Freddy and Matt Sorum on drums, and got to jam with him a couple of times, and David Navarro. It's really all over the place. We're just such big music fans that we just gravitate towards, anybody, from Elvis Costello to Iron Maiden,
Yeah.
It's also I always am gravitated towards, I don't know if you were able to tell with my poor sense of humor so far on the podcast, but you guys have a great sense of humor. As I changed my virtual background, so you guys in
That's
the video
awesome.
rubbing your bowling balls. Any
Good
fun things
times.
you can kind of remind us about, because it's a classic video when videos were a big deal. I still remember it. I had fun rewatching it, to kind of psych myself up for this interview. But it's like, oh yeah, this, it's all comes back to me. Anything that sticks out in particular about shooting My Own Worst Enemy, the video?
Well, for me, it was my 26th birthday when we were filming it. We filmed it over the course of 2 days, and I think it was the first day I was asked to go outside, like, hey, somebody needs you outside. So I remember going outside, and everybody got together and they had a cake, and I'll never forget that, because things were really starting to bubble at that point. The song was all over the radio, and here we were rushing to get the video done. So, because we had to leave to go out on the road for the next 2 years, things were lined up. So that was a very special time. I mean, like we said earlier, we were in college for so long. We finally left college, and we finally got our degree, and we were allowed to go out and live the rock and roll dream that we'd always dreamed about, and it was a lot of fun. And making that video before we left was really special, really cool.
What about this? I mean, I have to, and we'll see how this this background translates to Zoom, but I got to try it. Pamela Anderson, when you guys are all tiny on a scantily
Yeah,
clad
man.
Pamela Anderson. And look at
That-
you being held, little AJ. Being that's right. That's you.
Yeah.
yeah.
Anything,
Yeah. That was
you
amazing.
could tell us about the. I mean, the miserable. Great song, but the video again, it
Man.
takes it to another level.
Dude, she was, yeah, it was surreal, man. I would say Pamela was probably at like an all-time. She's an amazing person in general. She's extremely smart, really cool. But like, as far as like, dude, top of their game, like I don't think she's ever looked better. Just super killer to work with. Like she was there for like, I don't know, about 13, 14 hours, I want to say. Just never once complained, just like was stoked to be there and brought her kids. And I mean, dude, like one of the coolest videos, I think, whether it was us or not, it's like one of my favorite videos. Just how can it not be?
Yeah. We
Put on mute if you must. You know?
we got asked. She had a show called VIP, which was a little bit of a spoof on detective work type stuff.
Okay.
And they were going to use one of our songs for the show, so they asked us, "Hey, do you mind if we use a song for the show?" And we were like, "Yeah, of course." And then they wanted us to do a walk on where we just kind of walk in on a scene, and we said, "Yeah, that'd be fun. Yeah, absolutely." And next thing we know, we're being invited down to LA to a hotel to have a sit down with all the people for VIP. And they said, "Listen, we want to write an entire script with you guys in it. And Valerie Irons, Pamela Anderson, she's going to help you guys out. You know, she's going to do some detective work and whatever." And we're not actors, but how do you say no to that? Pamela Anderson is asking you to be on her show. Yes. Yeah. So what ended up happening around that same time, our label had what do they call them? A script for a video. And it was video treatment. And the girl was going to be really big and you guys are going to perform on her. I personally thought it was kind of lame. And I think we all did. But when we were starting to film VIP, we were like, if you can get Pam to be the 50-foot woman, then we're in. So our people contacted her people, and then she came up with the idea, yeah, I'll be in the video and we'll do the world premiere on my VIP show. So the world premiere of the video was on her actual show.
Oh, okay. I remember the show, but I was not an avid watcher of VIP.
Yeah, so it got us a lot more worldwide attention because her show was in every country in the world. And so
we had like overdubs, like it'd be us speaking German or Japanese or whatever. And that's amazing to watch. Yeah. It's so funny.
What a trip. That's funny. And then now I'd be remiss, of course, and I'll change my background again to something more PG. Yeah. Look at that, the car background.
Yeah. You know,
driving around in just your classic cars, the classic style. You know, can you tell me about the new song and just this new stuff from Lit before we get to any GNR thing, you know?
Yeah, man, we you know, when we kind of like went into quarantine, it took a minute to like want to be creative again. But once we started, you know, we were tired of sitting around doing nothing and drinking too much. And, you know, like a lot of people were doing during the shutdown, we decided to make the move here, and the band in general, we just kind of kicked into creative mode and discussed the direction a little bit, because the last record was leaned a little bit more country, and we had been writing so much of that, and it just felt natural, and that's why we put it out. But after putting it out, we had discussions and like whether or not we should have called that record a Lit record, or maybe just made it a side project, call it Popoff Brothers or whatever. But we intentionally wanted to get back to that same chemistry that's kept us a band all these years, I think, and just like this energy and wherever our heads were in 1999, 2000, you know, going through like the Atomic record and the Black record, really wanted to put our heads back there and start writing songs like that again. And we found this really cool magic, is sort of like rediscovery of that by bringing in, you know, we've been working a lot with these two dudes, Eric and Carla, who have been co-writing and co-producing with us, and really brought this cool, like new school production approach to it. So although we went back to a lot of the classic feel of Lit, we also have introduced a very new school, like very fresh sound. Yeah is a little more like just throwback, balls to the wall, just straight rocking. And then as you kind of, I think, dig deeper into this new record, you're going to hear like some different layers to us that you had never heard before, and things that sound really like new and current and fresh in a cool way, but also that classic lick that made people fall in love with us back in, you know, the late 90s. So it's just cool, man. It's just the best thing I could think of is just like a rediscovery, you know, and some new ingredients too.
I'm excited for it to hear the whole thing. You know, obviously
Thanks,
the video
man.
and the single is out now. Yeah. But
So much fun, man, to make that video too, by the way.
you
That was
guys know how to
blast.
make videos, as we've been discussing for sure. And I would
Thanks,
be
man.
remiss if because I got some questions from listeners for you guys when I said you were coming on. This is
Okay.
from Jason Britt, who's somewhere in New York. I'm not sure. I think he's from Buffalo, actually. So this is to AJ directly. You scribble the initial lyrics for My Own Worst Enemy on a notepad in a beat up Cadillac. I know
Uh-huh.
you guys are big caddy guys. Do you still have that one? If not, a similar one in better shape?
No, it sucks because I had that, you know, we had old Cadillacs and these old cars that were, you know, back in the day, I think it was before the movie Swingers came out, you were able to like find these golden nuggets of these old cars that were like, whether it was somebody's like grandmother that, you know, had passed away, or it was just in the family, and you'd find these cars for like a couple $1,000s and you'd score these like dope old rides. And over the years, they got to be pretty expensive, and they were hard to keep up too. It's hard to find parts for them and stuff. But once the band started getting busier and started touring a lot, man, there was nowhere to keep this big, you know, this boat. I loved it. It was my baby. It was my everyday driver. And I had to park it outside my condo in a parking space, and it was just getting weathered. And we'd come home for like a couple days and there'd be spider webs everywhere. And I started noticing like little issues, and I was like, man. And so I just decided there was no way I was going to be able to take care of this car. And I donated it to a charity. And so it was kind of like a win-win. And the car hopefully found a good home and went to a good cause. But no, I thought we don't have classic cars right now. I kind of been having that itch, but I don't know, man. You start to, most of the time it'd probably sit in the garage, you know, I'd be afraid to wreck it.
Okay. Well, I don't know.
I'll get back to one though, eventually.
Or in addition to collecting like Elvis statuettes, just invest in Hot Wheels or Matchbox.
There you go.
Get there.
I do still have the piece of paper that I wrote the lyrics down on. It's like just right over there in a drawer, but I've managed to hold on to that part.
It's just in a drawer with like your passport and stuff. It's not framed.
It's actually in with the cassette tape of the original demo of My Own Worst Enemy.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. That is very cool. This one is also from Jason Britt, but however, it's directed towards Jeremy, who was initially might have come on. So I don't know. Maybe Kevin, you can answer this.
Yeah, maybe I'll answer it.
In the video for Looks Like They Were Right, Jeremy was wearing a Buffalo NY shirt. Maybe Van Halen. He's not sure. Being from Buffalo, he was curious if there was a story behind that shirt or if it was randomly selected. So I'm not sure if you remember.
That I can't answer. All I know on that video, we tried to cover a lot of our inspiration in there. You know, Led Zeppelin with the bow on the Les Paul. We had the Eddie Van Halen guitar, and but as far as his clothing goes, I know I think we wore some Def Leppard shirts or something with the Iron Jack or whatever it's called.
Mm-hmm.
But the Buffalo shirt, I have no idea.
Yeah, I can't picture what that was either. But I do know, yeah, we did flash through the influences and different, you know, old rock bands, and yeah.
I think you both answered Jason's questions.
Tried.
So that's all good. That's all good. So let me ask, as we're talking about, you know, you mentioned Eddie Van Halen, and we were discussing, you know, your time on the Sunset Strip in that era. Have you had experiences with Van Halen or seeing Eddie Van Halen, or, you know, of course, Guns N' Roses, as this is the GNR flavored podcast. So I'm just curious who you may have seen in the heyday when you were younger, when you were in college, so to speak.
See him in concert?
Either or. I mean, if you have I always use the 6 degrees of GNR bacon, as I call it. So if you met any of the guys as Guns N' Roses or Eddie Van Halen, because you mentioned him, that's why it sticks in my head now. But I'm curious, when you guys were younger on this trip, who you might have seen in the heyday before they blew up. You know,
Here's kind of I didn't see GNR. Jeremy did see GNR at the Celebrity Theater, which is probably a 1,500 seater in Anaheim, California. And he saw them. I think Appetite might have just come out, but I mean, they weren't a household name yet, right? But I can't speak for Jeremy. I mean, he does have stories about going to that show, and I'm obviously envious. Like, dude, I knew you at the time, clearly. Why didn't you take me, you know? But I don't know, AJ, did you go to that show, or are you aware of that show?
I remember hearing about it, but no, I didn't go. I want to say, why do I want to say LA Guns opened for him or something trippy?
Well, LA Guns, I went to see LA Guns on their first tour at the Celebrity Theater with Racer X and Matal Fang.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
here's a funny story. Well, not funny, but we got predicted by Bill Gazzari. You've heard of the world famous Gazzaris. They predicted, Bill Gazzari predicted the Doors. He predicted Rat, Van Halen. Well, he actually predicted Razzle at the time, that we were going to make it. You know, we were just one of the house bands. We played there all the time. It was packed. And so he liked us. And so he gave us a star on stage, and then that star gets put up outside. And those are kind of his predictions of bands that are going to make it. Right. Well, about a week or two after he gave us that star, he passed away. And we were very close with the Gazzari's club and the family and everything. So we, of course, went to the funeral, and behind the bar, I don't know what year this was. It was around 90, 91. I'm going to go ahead and say it was 91. Behind the bar in a snakeskin jacket was Axl Rose. And the other, Ron Jeremy was there, of course. And then David Lee Roth's dad was there. David Lee Roth was not there. He was on tour. But David Lee Roth's dad is a doctor, and he came. I remember him going up and speaking. I'm a huge Van Halen fan. So, of course, when Dr. Roth was there, I was like, what? Who? You know, and
Crazy.
he went up and said, Dave wanted to be here, but he couldn't because he's on tour, blah, blah, blah. But, you know, because this is a GNR, I remember Axl Rose being there. And I remember kind of getting that weird feeling like, holy crap, dude. And he obviously was behind the bar so nobody can get to him. You know, he didn't want anybody talking to him. But he was there, and it was pretty cool to see him.
Then I guess let me ask, because you were absorbing so much at that time, do you remember when Appetite for Destruction hit, when that kind of almost changing of the guard happened? I guess when they were the hair metal was out, and I don't know if I'm being biased. I don't consider GNR hair metal. To me, they were like the in between to Nirvana and grunge a bit. Do you remember hearing them?
We had a large rock and roll station here in LA called KNEC, and that was the station you listened to. If you liked rock and roll, you listened to KNEC. And they were playing Welcome to the Jungle, of course, and it obviously sounded different from everything else. And then when you would see the video, you were like, what in the hell's going on here? I mean, they're glammy, but it's very dirty and very rough around the edges, and almost like they didn't take it very seriously, but did. You know, obviously everybody's seen the video. I mean, so you can imagine as a young kid, I mean, it definitely got your attention, and it was rougher and dirtier, and there was something appealing about it. But yeah, it was taken off like wildfire, obviously. I mean, people were gravitating towards that, you know.
It was kind of Sunset Strip with a little bit more of that like punk rock glam, like the Hanoi Rocks kind of, I think more image wise. And then just, it had maybe just a bluesier,
right,
something, but you know, everyone felt it. Just like you said, just like when Nirvana came out, you felt that, all right, climate is changing. And that was a shift that they created, which was very fresh and exciting, because then it all of a sudden lights a new fire under everybody's ass. Like, this is really cool. And it pushes you to go outside the box a little bit and really try and find your unique quality that they had found, you know, which then in turn becomes, is I think how you get some more unique sounding bands with their own sound. And then there's some copycats that last a while. And then someone else goes, I'm going to go outside and get uncomfortable until I make it, you know, our own.
It kind of made sense when Guns N' Roses came out, and we're really familiar with Hollywood. We spent a lot of time going up there from Orange County, but for us, it had most of the clubs that we could play, all age clubs. We were underage. But if you knew anything about Hollywood, Guns N' Roses it makes perfect sense, because there's a lot of glitz and glamour about Hollywood, but it also has a lot of dark alleys with a lot of seedy things happening in those alleys. And we did some of those things in those alleys, but Guns N' Roses is just that. There's glam and glitter there, but they're also seedy and dirty and grungy. And it kind of was the perfect Hollywood band. And, you know, and then you had your LA Guns, your Faster Pussycats, and Love Hates that were kind of along the same lines, you know?
Then what did
Yep.
you guys think when grunge came in? Like, how did you feel about that? Again, experiencing being a band in the early 80s. And you, as you mentioned earlier, AJ, you know, Lit, if you want to throw a, you know, just a general a 90s band label to it, you know, obviously much, much deeper than that, but you're a 90s band, but you're not grunge. So I'm just curious what you, as a fellow 90s band, what do you think about that with all your knowledge of,
we we're always, I mean, I think we're like a sponge. I do think we do absorb anything that's appealing to us, which we listen to so many different genres. When when grunge stuff came out, there were so many bands that we flipped out over and, you know, fell in love with and listened to a lot of, and a lot of their sound definitely trickled into our sound for a period of time. If you listen to a Trippin' Light Fantastic record, you'll hear a lot of that in our music. And I think we wanted to experiment with it because we loved it so much, and we're constantly experimenting. But we definitely went in, tried it out a little bit, and then went back outside of that. I think that vibe, and when we discovered our own sound, which is very A Place in the Sun, is definitely years and years of finding ourselves. And that was like, I feel like the first record where we're like, okay, I think this is our sound. I think we found kind of a sound, even though there's everything from very up tempo to ballads to, you know, we've kind of kept the doors open to do whatever we want, but we definitely became, you know, lit when A Place in the Sun came out.
it's so cool. And again, I mentioned, and I encourage everybody to listen to My Own Worst Enemy, the podcast. And I think this is going to be the beginning. Speaking of copycats, I think people are going to copy you and this formula right now for the podcast, because it's very interesting. It's not just, it's not just, you know, 4 podcasts about one song. I mean, just like how this isn't a podcast about Guns N' Roses. It is and it isn't. Obviously, we're talking about a lot of other things.
Yeah.
But the way it's produced, it's like a true crime lit. That's kind of what it sounds like. You know, with the narrator and the sound effects, it's very, very cool. So
Thank you.
congratulations.
I thought the same thing. I said something the other day about I don't listen or watch a lot of podcasts, but obviously I wanted to check ours out. Like, what did they do? Because all I ever did was the interview. I didn't know how it was going to turn out, and it was supposed to be 3, and they ended up doing 4, and I thought that was kind of neat. I was like, well, what did they do? So I listened to the first one, and I literally was like, man, this is pretty awesome. Like, I watch a lot of documentaries on Netflix, even about things that I don't, or even bands I don't typically listen to, but I'm just curious about their story, and I like a good story, you know, like, and I think Lit has a great story. I mean, we're 4 guys that have been at it a long time, and we were reaching for the dream, and we had this goal, and we achieved it, you know, and that's our story. And the podcast touches on a lot of that. It's not all about My Own Worst Enemy. It talks about everything, and it's really, they did a really good job putting it together.
Yeah, I agree. A lot of people don't realize, I think when a band has like any kind of success, especially when that's like your first, that introduces you to the band, most people they start there. So it's cool to get a backstory and show people a little bit of the struggles we went through. You know, there was definitely many, many times we could have said, shit, well, nice. We tried, you guys, you know, but the fact that, you know, we just didn't take no for an answer, and we kept pushing, got knocked down, got back up, kept going. And it really took a long, long time to have any sort of success. And I think it's cool for people to be able to hear that side of it, and maybe inspires somebody to push a little harder.
Yeah.
Or stick it out a little longer, because, you know, just when you think you aren't making it, keep your nose to the grinder. You'll get there.
I couldn't agree more. Again, I was floored to learn that the history of Lit goes back to 84, 85.
Yeah.
And again, this was, you know, I associate you guys with my high school, and you were kind of a newish band then. And just to learn about, you know, especially, you know, I've been in radio for, I don't know, it may not feel like it, but 20 years at this point. I'm 38, but I count college. College counts.
Right on.
And I'm still not, I guess, where I want to be, but there's a whole story that goes behind. So if somebody, hears this episode with Lit and they want to go back further, they can learn about it. But I think it's smart. Yeah, there's a lot of people that just might know My Own Worst Enemy. Oh, I really like that song. You know what? Let me hear what this is about. And then just learn so much. And then that just leads to, what are they up to now? And you obviously have stuff going on right now. So I
Yeah,
guess what
man.
is to come? What can we expect with the like, when is did you mention that when the album is? I haven't seen a date yet, right? When that might be
I
hitting?
want to say that the date, I believe, is May 6th, but we are going to be releasing more singles leading up to that date. That I don't know, but we will be releasing more singles, and I believe the album is dropping May 6th. And I got to be honest with everybody. Yeah, Yeah, Yeah is a great song. It's been getting a lot of great feedback. People are loving it. It's actually not my favorite song on the album. There are songs on that album that are, to me, and I can say this because quite a bit of the material I wasn't involved with. There's some great songs on there that AJ and Jeremy and some co-writes put together that are fantastic, really good stuff. And I can't wait to actually be able to just play the whole thing. I mean, I have it all in different files, on my phone. But
we've been playing a lot of the new stuff. Not a lot, but a good little handful. Maybe a quarter of the record. But we've been busting them out. Some of these live shows we're doing, and we'll all probably agree on this. We haven't really gotten that sort of feedback reaction from the crowd really since probably A Place in the Sun record, where we're playing songs for the first time and fans are literally like you could just see the light bulb go off in their heads, or they're just perking up, and we're getting great feedback over these songs live, these new ones. So it feels good. It's always fun to play new music live, but especially when you're getting that reception from the fan base, and that sort of, everyone seems really excited that it is a rock record. And then we went back to some of the roots, and it's an exciting time for us and for the fans, I think, for the old school fans.
And the tour has been going well. I know in today's apocalyptic world, it can be challenging. So I hope when you're in my neck of the woods, whether it be New York City or Long Island, I need to see Lit.
Dude, I love
for sure, man. Yeah, man. We love being on the road. We love, even if we got to fly out and fly right back home. We always love just getting on stage, and love New York, love Long Island. We'd love to get back soon.
Yeah, dude, I wanted to touch on something real quick that I thought about and we didn't touch on, because this is a GNR themed, or
however I phrase it. It's because if I call it a Guns N' Roses podcast, everyone just thinks like that's all it's about and that's all I do, and I wouldn't get lit on. I feel like, why do I want to talk about Guns N' Roses for 60 minutes or whatever? So
right. But check this out. We had a guy that did lighting for us. His name was Moondog. That's his real birth name on his birth certificate. And we had a warehouse that we rented monthly. It was a huge warehouse, and that's where we kept all our gear. But we built a stage in there because when we rehearsed, we wanted every rehearsal, we kind of treat it almost like a show. We'd run through the set list. Well, leading up to the stage were 2 sets of stairs. They are aluminum stairs. We ended up painting them gold because we were into this plush kind of look. But the stairs were from the Use Your Illusion tour, and we had them forever. And then we started renting out, because we were gone so much on the road. This was after, the steps were when we were younger, and then we finally made it. We had the steps forever. We went out on the road. We ended up subleasing our warehouse to other bands. And then when we came home, we ended up getting another place, and that place was a sublease. Well, what ended up happening is one of the bands got a hold of Jeremy and said, "Hey, we're leaving, and there's still a bunch of stuff in your warehouse. You might want to grab it because we're leaving and we're not going to play anymore." Well, I don't know what happened, but nobody ever went back to that warehouse and grabbed the stuff. But the lamp that's on the front cover of Trippin' Like Fantastic, that's gone. Those steps that were aluminum and probably worth their weight in gold, gone.
Worth their weight in aluminum.
Yeah. So
shame on me because that's in the first episode. Shame on me for not bringing that up earlier. So yeah, when you talk about those Use Your Illusion stage steps that you got, they're gone. Is that what you're saying right now?
Somebody recycled them, or they're sitting in somebody's warehouse.
They got recycled for sure. And we also had a grill in the middle of the stage. We would put a light under the grill because we filmed a video there once. So we just kept the grill there. The grill was from the staging too. The original staging from Use Your Illusion.
I forgot. I was going to ask if you still had that. So obviously no. Oh man. That's
bummer.
depressing to think it's either crushed into a cube or if somebody has it.
Yeah.
What would you prefer if it got recycled into like siding or somebody
I wish
has it?
somebody else was enjoying it.
Okay. Okay, just making sure.
Cases and cases of natural light.
Yeah.
That would be funny.
terrible.
Oh, then you know what? Let me ask then, since I forgot to ask this, AJ. How has been playing with how was playing with Matt Sorum in Camp Freddy? How did that come about?
Dude, I got hit up to come out and just do a couple songs. Originally, we did, I want to say the Roxy. And then I got asked to go to Vegas with them. So we got on private jet. It was actually Dave Navarro, Matt Sorum, Scott Weiland was on that flight. This like little tiny plane. It was just really cool getting had that intimate time with guys like that I looked up to, and then going to Vegas and getting to perform with them. And but yeah, I mean, Matt's a super rad dude. We've kind of stayed in touch through like social media, and we you know, chat here and there. We follow each other's kind of day-to-day stuff, and just a really cool, like awesome dude. He feels like just one of us. And I'm reminded when I see old Guns N' Roses videos and stuff, and I see like, hear the songs, and I just watch him playing on these massive stages, how like to be part of GNR, you know, through the time he was in the band, like how insane that must have been. But he's very humble, very cool dude.
Did you ever tell him the stairs story?
No,
Okay.
didn't. That's definitely have to.
Alright. Maybe
Next time we're around him, actually get into that story with him. But
And
he's got a great sense of style too, man. I don't know if you've seen his his
Sure.
Palm Springs like layout. He's like, he just loves like that old vintage car, mid-century modern house and stuff. He's a stylish dude.
Now it makes even more sense why you guys would hit it off.
I guess so.
And let me just ask, because you had mentioned, and did you have other than just being on a flight with him, did you have a conversation with Scott Weiland? Did you get a chance to introduce yourself?
Oh, we talked a little bit. He was definitely not in a good place. You know, it was around the time he was kind of back and forth, like getting clean off the wagon kind of stuff. And he was, I think, off the wagon at the time. So wasn't really connecting a whole lot with many people, you know.
Okay.
Talked a lot, seemed like a nice enough guy, you know. But man, one of the greatest performers, I feel like, of all time. I think it's really sad what happened to him.
Yeah.
Absolutely. One of the other, that's why I say GNR themed, because I also talk about mental health and addiction and everything. Actually,
Yeah.
because I mentioned to you before we started recording, Dave Navarro, who, even though we're recording this before I'm taping that, he's going to be, I think, in the episode before this, if that makes any sense.
Okay.
But he's coming on to promote, talk about sobriety and, a big event he's putting on with Billy Morrison. So, that's definitely a topic of conversation. So that's why it's even more special to see guys like you who went into those dark alleys on the Sunset Strip come out of it and look where you both have beautiful Christmas trees and animals in the background. You're living the dream.
Yeah.
So thank you
Yeah,
both.
man. Thank you, brother. Yeah, we feel
Yeah, thanks for having us.
definitely feel fortunate to still be making music, new music, talking with you, and yeah, man, looking forward to taking the new stuff out on the road and keeping it going. But appreciate your time, brother.
You got it. Thank you so much. So that does it for this episode of Appetite for Distortion. When will you see the next one? In the words of Axl Rose concerning Chinese democracy, you'll see it. I don't know if soon is the word.